Have a seat on your porcelain throne. It's time to talk some shit on the Powell Movement.
Welcome to the Powell Movement. I'm your host, Mike Powell, and this week in the drama that is the life of the Powell family, well, we wait. Our fingers are crossed, hoping that Ange gets into this experimental treatment for her cancer. We'll find out on December 19th if she gets in, and if she does, well, it's another round of much-needed hope for us. Having a sick one is such a challenge, especially when there's so much left in life to do. So hopefully we can get into this trial. What I do know, and this has kind of become my mantra in life lately, is something will happen. That's the mantra. Something will happen. Is it going to be good? Is it going to be bad? I don't even know. I just know the outcome is that something's going to happen. That's the deal. And on the interview front, something happened that I didn't think would. Years ago, I would see pro skateboarder Greg Lutzka post about his skateboard life, but the really interesting part of that to me was his business life. The dude had so many deals going on left and right, and they were all big ones. Like Harley Davidson here, skate shop there, podcast here. He was just doing everything with big brands. I texted him multiple times to try to get him on the show because his life was that interesting to me. But all I got back was crickets. Well, 4 years later, and out of the blue, his agent emails me and is like, hey, would you like to interview Greg? I was like, sure, I totally did. And while this interview should have come in the spring, I have so many things going on that I just threw Greg into the mix right now in the middle of the winter. And I'm not going to spoil his podcast for you. I'll just say that Lutzka is an A-list skater and he's a businessman who's got an interesting story. Before I get into it, I want to ask you to do a few things for me. First, if you need stickers or any promo items, I work for diecutstickers.com. Email me at mike.powell@diecutstickers.com and I will take good care of you. Second, please subscribe to the show wherever you listen. And tell a friend about the show. And finally, please, please, please support the incredible brands who make this show happen. They are Elan Skis, Outdoor Research, Stanley, Best Day Brewing, Insta360 Cameras, and Thermic and Descent Socks. Now, it's time to chat with Greg Lutzka. So you're born on 4/20, and that doesn't mean anything, but when you think about when you were a kid, were you a stereotypical skater kid when you came up?
Yeah, man, I grew up in the Midwest, was always like that kind of skate rat. I grew up pretty much playing ice hockey and got into skateboarding right from ice hockey. And, we got a skate park in my hometown, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, around, I think I was age I want to say 10 or 11 or so. So I definitely was that skate rat and hanging out in the park almost every single day, just focused on skating and having fun with my friends. But yeah, that's kind of like a little bit of the background of growing up in the Midwest where it's snowing kind of half the year, where now I live in Southern California where it's pretty beautiful every day. It's kind of weird because when Christmas is coming around, that's coming up here. It's like there's no snow, but for skateboarding wise, it's pretty awesome to live in California where you can skate all year round, where back in the Midwest, half the year I was pretty much in the skate parks,
Yeah. Well, I mean, you look at those skate kids. I mean, even today, I see it at skate parks when I take my kid and stuff. And there is kind of a bad element sometimes at skate parks, and all the skateboarders kind of get grouped into that bad element, and it's almost guilt by association. I know my kids got in trouble for that too. When you were coming up, were you kind of grouped with all the bad kids because you were a skateboarder with green hair or blue hair or whatever?
No, I mean, I think as a skateboarder, you're just a lot different than the average kid that goes to school and plays ice hockey like, I did as even a younger kid. I was kind of always doing my own thing for sure. Even as a kid growing up, I would skate in my basement, even if it was by myself before my brother really started skating and before we had a skate park. So I was always kind of doing my own thing, to be honest. Skateboarding just became a huge passion of mine. And then, when I started dyeing my hair blue and all that kind of stuff, that's when the grunge rock was kind of coming in, like Nirvana. I'd listen to a lot of Nirvana and wearing the baggy pants and watching 401 Video magazine videos growing up, looking up to a lot of the pros that are still at the top to this day. Andrew Reynolds, Jeff Raleigh, Jamie Thomas, Chad Muska, Tom Penny. Those are the dudes who I looked up to that, I still look up to those guys today as well. There's a lot of definitely new skateboarders on the block, that are coming up that are crazy on a whole nother level, like Yuto. But, I always like the OG kind of guys. And those are kind of the guys that I looked up to. And a lot of those guys weren't from California either. They moved across the country, or even from other, like Jeff's from Europe, moved all the way from Europe to California to make it as a pro skateboarder. So like, I was just seeing what those guys were doing and wanted to do exactly what they were doing. And, that's kind of the reason why I left my hometown and decided to move to Southern California. And, looking back at it, thank God I did, and made my dreams a reality, and still out here doing it,
Yeah, well, before you made all your dreams a reality, you grow up in Milwaukee, and it's you and your brother and your parents. And what'd the folks do for work? And was it like rich, poor, or average growing up?
No, I mean, we definitely weren't rich, or we were, I'd say like pretty middle class, because my dad worked two jobs, at the time. My mom worked, she was in the banking world, she worked like at a bank. And then like my mom actually got into working for the city, and she's about to retire here in 2 years, which is pretty cool. But she's been with the city for about 30 years now. So like, definitely not rich, I can tell you that much, but definitely not like broke poor. You know what I mean? It wasn't like a Eminem 8 Mile story or anything like that. But yeah, we didn't have like a ton of money, but my parents were really supportive and did everything they could to get me like a new skateboard when they could, and kept me going, very supportive. They brought me down to Tampa Am like for the first couple of years, actually, when I was starting to venture out and go skate other contests than just the ones in the local Midwest area, So my parents were very supportive. Definitely weren't rich, by any means, but also I don't want to say poor, because, when you say poor, it's kind of like, I think of like a 8 Mile kind of Eminem story, and it wasn't like that. But, they were just very supportive parents and did everything they could to support what me and my brother enjoyed to do growing up, and gave it their all, and still do to this day. So, I mean, they fly out here to California to visit me and my brother for Christmas, and a couple times a year, we go back to the hometown in Milwaukee, Wisconsin to visit them and other family members and friends growing up that I grew up with in school back then. So, I'm definitely a Midwest kid, but, just followed my dream for skateboarding. And then, basically that's why I left school and left everything I was doing there to come out here and follow my passion for skating and become a pro skater.
So it all started with hockey with you, it sounds like. And that's pretty normal, I would think, for kids in Milwaukee, because hockey is a big part of the Midwest and growing up there. But how and when did you find skateboarding?
I would say, like, growing up, me and my dad grew up in northern Minnesota. So me and my brother growing up in Milwaukee, that's where my mom is from. He moved down to Milwaukee. He was playing ice hockey as a kid, and so did his brothers. And so he just naturally got, me and my brother into it, his kids, So we were on ice skates at age 2. We were skiing at like age 2 as well, and snowmobiling. And then I started getting into snowboarding. And then from there, like kids on my hockey team skated. So like, that's basically where it happened. I started getting my first skateboard and skating with some kids on my hockey team. And then like, I just kind of fell out of wanting to be on like a team sport where like there were just so many rules, like you could only play at this time on Saturdays, like the game, and then whatever, like other nights or other days or whatever were like practice. You couldn't really do it when you wanted to do it. Where skateboarding, it's like there are no rules. You can just go out there and go shred. So we didn't have a skate park. Like the big one that had just closed down, that's actually coming back around right now. They were going to reopen it years later, like 20 some years later, but it's called the Turf. So that shut down in my hometown. It was like a legendary park. And so we didn't have a skate park for many years. And this guy, Neil Levin, kind of came around and wanted to open up Four Seasons skate park. I went to the city, and basically it just was like really good timing, because my mom just had started working for the city at that time. And she's like, well, this is great. My kid skates. And, he went to the city to try to get like a grant. Some of these cities will give small business owners some money, like a grant to help kickstart a business, to help supply jobs in the local area and all that stuff. So my mom was able to get it approved for him to get a $50,000 grant to open the skate park. And, he just felt like in return, he was so grateful. He's like, you're good, man. You don't ever have to pay to skate here. You can skate here as long as you want to skate here. And that's kind of how it all happened. And it was like a dream come true. So like, I never had to pay to go to Four Seasons, and just went there every single day and skated and met a lot of my friends there. And just kind of like, I guess that's how I ended up getting really good at skateboarding. And I think without that kind of story in the beginning, I definitely wouldn't be where I'm at right now. If we never got that skate park, I wouldn't be the skateboarder who I am to this day, because we would just be in there all day long. And I learned how to skate transition, and there was perfect little flat bar rails and all that kind of stuff. So it was like the training ground, I guess you could say, private little training ground, and he would let us stay after hours too at times, so like sometimes we would skate and be like, you guys want to skate after? Totally cool. Like after hours. So like basically we had our own little private park, which was absolutely amazing, you know?
Yeah, and when you think about it, I mean, people talk about 10,000 hours of doing something makes you an expert at something. And I mean, if you look at your contest career, I mean, from like 2003 to maybe 2008 or 9, you were killing it on the contest circuit, it seemed like. And do you kind of attribute that to all the time that you were spending in the park and just like it's being so cold in Milwaukee that you have to be inside and you have to be skating transition? And after, 10, 15 years of that, you can skate just about anything and it all paid off in contests when you'd show up there?
Oh yeah, like 100%. Like there's no way I was ever going to be able to win any of ththose big contests. The Maluk Money Cup, Tampa Pro 3 times, multiple X Games gold medals, multiple Dew Tour medals. Like there's no way that I was going to ever be like that great in skating contests. And it's kind of funny because like I skated the skate parks back home a lot, when I lived there. But then when I moved to California, I never really skated skate parks out here much. Like I was kind of against it because I grew up in the skate park. So like when I came to California, I was like, I just want to skate street. And that's when I was filming the video parts, like Almost Round 3 and the Globe United by Fate video and the Oakley R Life video and, the digital video, all that was like, I was strictly street skateboarding a lot, but then I got opportunity to skate in, some of those bigger contests like, X Games. And I think Dew Tour was one that we skated a lot as well. And I started winning them. But in between in between the contests, I was just skating street and filming a ton. So like at one point, like I got kind of labeled, Sheckler, we got labeled a little bit as like contest skaters. But I think that's just because we were winning a lot of those big events, but we were actually filming and skating street a ton too. Like Sheckler was in the Almost Round 3 video with me. We were traveling a ton. So like he was skating street a lot too. It just, people would see us on the TV stations and winning those events. So like at one point I was like, oh, these guys are contest skaters. And at the end of the day, like I just wanted to skate. So it was like, if opportunity was coming my way to skate in some of those big events that were on ESPN with the X Games and Dew Tour that was on NBC, or if it was filming a video part that was, the Oakley R Light video or the Almost Round 3 video, I was just taking opportunity and going after it and just skating every single day, So to me, it was like all the same, I just wanted to skate. And I guess the progression came from being on my board a lot. Basically, that's all I cared about. That's all I wanted to do every day was to skate. And, growing up in the Midwest where it was cold and the weather wasn't so nice when you came to California. And it's like, I moved here in January and it's just like 75 degrees and sunny. It's a whole different world. You're like, man, I just want to be outside all day, every day. So it was kind of like I wasn't spoiled with crazy good weather growing up as a kid. So when, coming out here, it was just a different ballgame of like always wanting to be outside and being on my board.
I would think that when you get to California, everything is perfect compared to what you have growing up in the Midwest, where the roads are splitting from being frozen and salted and everything's happens. But we're not going to go there that fast. When you started coming up, like the late 90s, 97, 98, 99, this is when the rollerblade scene was blowing up. It was on fire. And you played hockey as well. Was there any rollerblading in your life at all, or was it all just skateboarding?
It was just mainly more skateboarding. I think at one point, like there was some we'd have like roller hockey sometimes, but not really. I pretty much played ice hockey my whole upbringing, in the basement, sometimes we'd shoot hockey pucks but I do remember that age, or I remember that time and era where rollerblading was around for sure, but it wasn't that popular at the Four Seasons Park. I would say there'd probably be more BMX kids than the rollerblader kids, and nowadays you don't see any rollerblade kids. Now it's like you see scooter kids, I guess you could say, but no, I was strictly like, just love skateboarding and snowboarding. Like, I did ski as like a kid growing up for a bit because my dad just got us on skis and that was like natural. But the second I got a little bit older, I think I was like 6 or 7, maybe around 7, I got a snowboard and like that was it. We just snowboarded and then obviously skated all the time,
And then thinking of you being a really talented athlete and a guy with the work ethic that just doesn't quit, if you think about you playing hockey, if you never found skateboarding, do you think you could have taken your athletic ability and gone really far in hockey?
Yeah, for sure. Like me and my brother were like going to the point to like be pro ice hockey players for sure. Like we were already on AAA ice hockey. My brother's 3 years younger than me. He was playing on his ice hockey team and then he's a goalie and then was goalie on my team, which is like 3 years with older kids. He was really talented. We both were talented in ice hockey for sure. We were going in the summer. we were going to Marquette University up in Michigan and, hockey camps and all that kind of stuff. So no, I probably would have been a professional ice hockey player, I think, and I think my dad wasn't like looking at that so much. I think he was more looking at like, well, this could be something cool for the kids to do while they're young and meet friends and just be active. But then as they get older, it could be like a scholarship for them to go to college and who knows, take it on their own wherever they want to take it. But, I found skateboarding and I just kind of went my own direction with skating. And then, my parents were just supportive of whatever I wanted to do. And to be honest, like to this day, like now I kind of miss ice hockey and I actually bought my gear and sometimes I just play like pickup league, like right down the street here in Lake Forest at Ice Palace and nothing serious, it's just kind of more like you pay $20 and you go and you play for an hour or whatever. And it's just, it's a game, but it's more just fun ice hockey, old man's league, I guess you could say, or
beer league.
Beer league. There you go. Yeah, there you go.
One thing I should ask you about growing up in Milwaukee, especially when you did grow up, was like the whole Jeffrey Dahmer thing. Like he was like the big story all over the country. Was that a big deal when you grew up as a kid?
Dude, I don't even remember. I know his name and I know he did some crazy shit, but I just never followed any of the even to this day, I don't follow what's going on in the news, to be honest. Like I know the whole Diddy thing's going on right now. I just don't follow media. I don't follow what's going on. I barely watch TV. If it is, it's like it's Shark Tank pretty much. That's the only TV show I pretty much watch. It's like an entrepreneur type show that, people building businesses and creating products. And like, that's kind of like more what I watch. Even movies, I don't even really watch that many movies, to be honest. So I can't really speak on anything of that. But I know people brought it up like, oh, he's from Wisconsin or more. I'm not even sure what city or whatnot. But yeah, I don't really follow the media. I never really did in the news or whatever that's going on in the world. You know what I mean? Like I just always kind of just stay focused on like what I'm doing and could care less about what's going on in the outside world, I guess.
Did you at least know about like the B3 events and the ASA events that would come to Milwaukee and Summerfest? And would you show up at those with your crew?
You know what? I feel like I did skate an ASA event, but it was like there was only a few of them. But I'm trying to think, man.
I mean, I would think it would be when you were a kid, almost like late 90s, yeah. Early 2000s. Like I would just think that you guys would show up and go under that bridge in Milwaukee.
I might have been to one or two of them, but it wasn't like something that we would know about and go to every year if they came to my hometown every year. You know what I mean?
Okay. We'll ask you some other Milwaukee questions. When it is bitter cold, when you're a kid, do you guys still go out and try to skate when it's -20 out there?
I did. Yeah, of course. Like, I remember like shoveling snow and like skating in front of the house or like by the library up the street. Like definitely, like we definitely skated outside even in the cold. There's footage of me probably in like November where it didn't snow yet skating my high school. I have a documentary out that's on Apple TV called One Way Ticket. And it's basically my whole life story. And 100%, like there's tons of footage in there where we were just skating and it's probably like 10 degrees. Like your trucks would be frozen, literally like the bushings of your trucks would be rock hard. And like, I'd have gloves on and like trying to like switch flip the 11 stair at my high school. And it's kind of funny, but yeah, like looking back, like we always skated in the cold. Like it didn't really matter, I guess when Four Seasons came around, we would skate indoor there, but it was a warehouse and it wasn't like he had a huge heater or anything. It was a massive warehouse actually. It was like, I don't know how many square feet, but it was massive. And it had like those old school like windows in there, like a lot of glass windows, and some of them at the time might have been broke or like, the heat doesn't like just stay in the park,
Yeah.
It was freezing in there too. Like when you fell and you smacked your hand on the ground or you felt it, like the ground was definitely ice cold, like from the outside, and in there. So I've always skated like with hoodies on or even gloves sometimes in the skate park. I remember wearing like gloves as a kid, like, dude, it's cold in here.
Yeah.
You can see your breath,
It's time for my first sponsor break, and I'm going to start off with Insta360 Video Cameras. My new camera, my X4 from Insta360 Video, is totally game-changing. 360-degree video means you can't miss a shot. And the invisible selfie stick means that you won't be able to see anything in the way of that full 360-degree video. It's game-changing, it's incredible, and I get every angle of every shot that I take in up to 8K resolution, and I can take that footage and have it on my phone in the Insta360 app in no time, and it's ready to edit in an app that's super easy to use. If you haven't checked out Shaun White's latest edit, his Insta360 video, where he's got text dropped over all of the different tricks that he's doing, it is a totally futuristic thing that you can only do with this type of 360 video. It's why world-class resorts like Banff Sunshine Village and Big White work with Insta360, but really, that shouldn't matter to you. What should matter is how easy this camera is for you to use, how easy it is for you to edit, and what you can save by listening to this podcast. Because not only are you still going to be able to get that holiday deal they were offering, 15% off your camera order, but when you check out at Insta360.com and you get yourself an X4 camera, you're going to get yourself a free ski pole mount attachment when you enter the code Powell. That's Powell. The letter P is capitalized. And you're going to get all of that for being a loyal Powell Movement listener. So please enjoy that. Next up, it's Elan Skis. And while I could tell you all about the new award-winning Ripstick ski models and then push you to demo them at your local shop because they'll make you have more fun on the mountain, I'm just going to talk about your local shop. There's something special about stepping into your local ski shop. The smell of the freshly waxed skis, discussion about where to find the best skiing, and expert advice makes these shops more than just a place to buy gear. We at Elan believe that ski shops are the soul of skiing, a place where skiers can come together for genuine human connection. And that can't be replaced by going online. Going to a ski shop is an experience where you want to connect with a like-minded person who understands what you're wanting to do and wants to share their knowledge with you so you can have a good time doing something they love to do too. Shops are among the last authentic pieces of the ski community we have left. And here at Elan, we want you to support your local ski shop. You can find our list of dealers nationwide over at our website, elanskis.com. And remember, support your local ski shop. Last but not least this round is Best Day Brewing. And with snow season here, skiers, snowboarders, weekend warriors, tubers, sledders, snowmobilers, snowbikers, you get it. The doers of winter are getting ready to shred. And post-shred, it's all about apres. And this year, do apres the right way. Forget about the calories, forget about the alcohol, forget about getting in trouble on the way home. Because with a beer from Best Day Brewing, you get all the flavor of your favorite beer, whether it be a West Coast IPA, a hazy IPA, a Kolsch, an Electro Lime, or my new favorite flavor, Nature's Pills. And you don't have to worry about anything but having your best day ever. Blind taste tests have proven that you won't be able to taste the difference between a Best Day and your favorite alcoholic beer. Really, the only difference is you're going to notice how good you feel in the morning after drinking a Best Day, and you're also going to remember what you did last night, which is almost as refreshing as a Best Day itself. So the next time you're at the store, pick up a 6-pack of Best Day, or order one on your next Alaska flight, or you can always buy some on Amazon or over at bestdaybrewing.com. Those are my sponsors. Now let's jump back into the podcast. You went snowboarding, you said, and when you think about snowboarding, I mean, skateboarding to me is definitely the harder of the two sports to learn just because you have to master the ollie to do all the rest of the tricks within the sport, it seems like. When you think about like your snowboarding, did it come to you really, really easily just because once you figured out the edges, it was all muscle memory and shit like that?
You know what? That's a good question. I definitely am a pretty good snowboarder. Don't get me wrong, but I don't feel like it came that easy. Like it's just different than skating. Like I feel like snowboarding is kind of more like almost like wakeboarding or I don't want to say surfing because I'm not a great surfer at all. But it's almost like you got to feel your edges. Where skating, you're not really working with your edges, you know. So it is different. It's a different feeling. And when you snowboard and hit rails and stuff, it's a completely different feeling there as well. Like skateboarding, you really lock in your trucks, and when you do certain tricks, Smith grinds and feeble grinds and crooked grinds, all that kind of stuff, you really locked in. Snowboarding, it's like there's really no locking in, and you're strapped in, so you're not really kicking away your board. You know, naturally, I think I always grafted more towards skating and being, I mean, obviously I'm a better skateboarder than snowboarder, but I just always enjoyed going to the mountains. And to this day, like I love going to the mountains. I love just getting away and being in nature. So for me, you know, I'm not like Shaun White where I'm great at both and I compete in both and it's making a career in snowboarding or anything, or it's never been a goal of mine. It's more just going to the mountains and having fun with my friends and just being out in nature and just checking out new places. Like last year we went to like Big Sky, Montana. The place is amazing. You know, like there's so many cool places. And with skateboarding, you don't really get to go to those kind of colder places. Like skateboarding's really probably not that big in Big Sky. You know what I mean? Like there's never contests there. So for me, it's kind of cool to go check out new places. And I've always had passion for snowboarding, but just always loved, enjoyed going to the mountains, really, is what it comes down to.
Okay. And then when you think about action sports in general, is skateboarding the hardest of all the action sports in your opinion?
I mean, it's the only thing I really did. So it's hard for me to say, but I mean, I don't know. Like, I could probably jump a bike. I could probably jump some dirt jumps, not like they're doing in X Games, but I could probably jump some dirt jumps on a BMX bike. As a kid, I remember building like dirt jumps and stuff, but I just always went after skating. I just always loved skating. But, definitely as a kid, I had a BMX bike and, me and my friends would build little dirt jumps in the woods and all that kind of stuff. But I think it's, one of those things. I do see some of the BMXers, and when they go down, they get hurt pretty bad. When you go down on a BMX bike and you get a handlebar in your freaking rib cage,
Yeah.
That's how these guys get knocked out pretty gnarly. It's crazy, and some of them get paralyzed. You see more BMXers getting paralyzed than skateboarders getting paralyzed, and definitely more motocross guys. FMX motocross guys are insane. So like I respect all the other, like when I go to X Games, I'd watch all the BMX, watch the freestyle motocross, all that stuff. Just for me, I just always stuck towards skating, and in the winter, I would just have fun and go snowboarding. It wasn't ever anything serious or trying to take my snowboarding and go do triple backflips,
So it's kind of like not as many people die on a skateboard, and it's technically harder, but you're not going to die most likely.
Yeah, I don't know. I think skateboarding's just, it is pretty technical. It's definitely different. I think motocross riders are just going more like buck wild. You're going way faster. It's way higher. You know what I mean? So I don't know, when you go down on your bike, and I ride motocross. I ride dirt bikes too, and Harleys, all that kind of stuff. But I'm not doing that kind of crazy stuff on them. I just more cruise and enjoy being on my bike. So it's hard for me to kind of compare it. I just know I really respect those guys and what they do, and it's pretty cool to watch.
And for a guy who's focused so much on business in his career throughout his whole career, when you look at action sports as a whole, what's the most lucrative action sport? I mean, do skateboarders make more than surfers, make more than bikers, or how does the pecking order go? Because I would think skateboarding's right up there, but I also feel like surfers make the most.
Yeah, I don't really know, to be honest. I never really talked to other athletes what they're making or any of that kind of stuff. I just focused on riding for the brands that like I believe in, and the brands that like I wanted to work with, and products that I actually really use, So like I think, over all the years, I've rode for a lot of companies outside of just the core market of skateboarding, and some of them are supplement brands or health food brands, or I have a system in my car, like Kicker Audio speakers in my car. Like I love music, so I work with them. I just signed with Trace Minerals. They're an amazing company. Like I'm really about, as I'm getting older, my health and wellness and feeling good every day and staying hydrated. Like, so their products definitely are something that I use on the daily. I work with Aqua Hydrate Water. I'm actually a part business owner, and I have shares in their company. So that's pretty cool. And I think staying hydrated is super important. Like I used to ride for some of the energy drink companies, and, as I got older, I just like, man, that these drinks aren't very good for you. And that's when I started really, transferring over, drinking more water. My legs actually gave out at Tampa Pro contest where I was skating, and in Florida, it was so hot. I was sweating, and it was like, I think day 2 of the contest, or maybe even day 3, it might've been the finals. And my legs literally gave out because I just wasn't hydrated. And I've always heard about like people's legs cramping up. Like you hear about it with runners, oh, your legs can cramp up, stay hydrated. And, I never really had that happen my entire life. So like, I didn't know what that would feel like, but yeah, it's no joke. My legs like literally gave out. And then that's kind of when I started traveling with like the power packs that like Trace Minerals makes, and putting those in my water and drinking that as I'm skating. And, I think just as I get older, like I have a sauna in my house. I work with J&H Lifestyle Saunas, and I use that sauna. I used it earlier today. Like I use it like 3-4 times a week, and it's a game changer for me. Like I feel good. I sleep good. You're getting rid of toxins in your body. So like, I think just as I got older, like I just started wanting to work with like brands that I believed in that could actually help my health and wellness, that ultimately is helping my skateboarding and enabling me to skate even longer. And then, younger kids or, skaters coming up, or people in general see me promoting these brands, and hopefully they can get inspired and start taking better care of their body and their health and wellness, because it's super important. And even the foods out here, going out to eat and stuff, like a lot of these restaurants don't use the best oils, don't, like they just, they cut corners in their food. So like lately I've been focused a lot on just buying organic food from the grocery store, making food at home, taking lunches with me for the day that I made, because I just noticed more and more when I go out to eat and eat some of the, like, I don't know, some of the, I don't want to say fast food because I don't really eat fast food, but even like the halfway fast food where it's like not fast food, but it's run in and get a sandwich at Jersey Mike's, or you know what I mean? Like those kind of places. Like it's just not the best quality food. And then you just don't feel good and you're like sluggish. And so like that's a big thing for me that I've learned over the last, I would say I've been, trying to take better care of my health over the last like 10 years or so, but I focus more and more on that because, without your health, you have nothing. So there are some great brands out there that I work with that I'm really excited to be part of their company and them supporting me and enabling me to feel good and be healthy and skate at my highest performance. And I think that's a really important thing, that I think a lot of people don't look at, especially younger people. And I did the same, I'd be out skating and then stopping by and eating a Subway or something, and not really paying attention. But back then I remember not feeling that good then, I just didn't know why. And now I can like see why I didn't feel good, or, and I can tell the difference because I do shop at Mother's Market and Sprouts and Whole Foods and those kinds of places. I try to get organic food all the time. And when I don't eat that kind of food, I feel the difference in my body. It's like, it's crazy. But I mean, the food out there is just, it's like when you go to Europe, they don't really even have, I feel like, organic and non-organic. There's a lot of like stuff that they put in American food that's banned in other countries,
Yeah.
And it's just crazy. Like the world we live in, where hopefully things will change here in the future where, America will be like that. And you can go out and about and try to get better foods. And it's not as hard to do and find and live that lifestyle. They should be banning a lot of those bad stuff that they put in our foods here. They really should. And we'll see. Hopefully things change here in the future.
I mean, it sounds like you're like most of us, where you probably ate like a garbage can when you were growing up till you get to be like mid to late 20s. Then you realize, oh, if I eat this better food, things are going to be better for me. And then eventually you probably like getting into fitness and doing things that are actually good for your body, where they kind of all seem lame when you were younger. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, very fair to say, and I just think that, when I was younger, I don't think anyone like showed me the difference. You know what I mean? Like if there was someone that like kind of showed me the way, I probably would have became this person who I am now even earlier, and, definitely if you start taking care of your body, start eating healthier, you're taking supplements, it's really just taking care of your health. No one's going to benefit from it but you. So it's really on you. But then when you start living that kind of lifestyle and you go back to you're eating some not such good foods, you literally feel the difference. And that's what kind of keeps me always on track and trying to, pick the right foods and eat organic and taking supplements and staying hydrated and just taking care of my body, and I love the sauna too. Like I said, the sauna is huge, like detoxing your body. And like, there's so many benefits with the sauna, and yeah, health and wellness is huge. Without your health, you have nothing,
Have you gotten into the cold plunge yet, or is that for next year for you?
You know what? I want one. I do. I was actually looking at it. I really do want one, But yeah, a lot of times when I do the sauna, I just kind of do that. And then I go in the shower and just put like ice cold water and just like, it's just, that's enough. That's enough cold plunge for me right there. I'm like, oh man. So, it's like a body like from hot to cold, but the cold plunge, like, I don't know. I feel like, I don't know if I would enjoy it as much as the sauna. Like I really enjoy the sauna because I go in there and like I meditate and it's like relaxing for me. And it's like I feel like at home in there, and like I have like speakers in mine and it's all infrared. It's amazing. The sauna is great. And like I listen to like meditative music and like I manifest like the things I'm going to do in my life in there. And like, it's just like, it's a whole different ball game of like, I feel like if I went in the cold plunge, I'm going to probably be kind of miserable. It's gonna be so cold. Like, oh dude, it's gonna be like I'm at the battle to stay in there for freaking 2 minutes, where
Yeah.
Just a whole different ball game. But I know the cold plunge is good for you and it's great for, inflammation. And if you have injury, obviously it's phenomenal. There's no better thing. And I do the same. Like sometimes like when I roll my ankle, I'll ice it with the ice pack, but to be honest, like it doesn't do the same as if I take like a garbage bin, a smaller garbage bin, fill it with ice and water and stick my foot in it. You know what I mean?
Totally.
And then take it up further bin, put it back in. Like that works the best. So that's kind of what I would always do when I go on tour. I would just skip the ice and just get like the ice bucket,
Yeah, I can see that working. And, talking about sponsors, you'd mentioned that, you had the energy drink brands early on. And just you had sponsors early on. I think like you were on Beer City or something when you were like 14. I think you got your first print ad when you were like 14. But in the grand scheme of sponsorship of your career, how many different brands do you think you've signed deals with? Is it 40 brands over your 20 years?
I don't know how many brands, to be honest. As time went along, I just wanted to always work with cool companies, like I signed with Harley Davidson. I started really like ripping around Harleys, and like, it's just like every company I signed with was like brands that I wanted to. Amy's Kitchen, like a food sponsor, like I would eat their food all the time, and I don't know how many companies over the years, I just kind of always was just looking outside the box and doing kind of my own thing, like where a lot of the skaters were just riding for brands that were in the skate industry, right? So they were just riding for like their typical board company, wheel company, truck company, shoe company, maybe a clothing company. And I was just kind of looking outside the box for like, dude, I do these other things in my life. And, I live this different kind of lifestyle where I want to ride for these companies, and so I'd start reaching out to them, and that's kind of what happened. Like 6 months ago, I just got a Marin mountain bike, and like, I love mountain biking, and it's an e-mountain bike, but because I don't like the climb, like some people like the climb, I like just like ripping down the trails and riding fast. And like, I reached out to them because I was going to buy one of their bikes, and we ended up just doing a deal together, and like, I ride their bikes all the time now, and they don't pay me or anything. And same with the snowboard company, like Never Summer, I work with them, and Icon Pass, I work with them. It just naturally, like things that I enjoyed to do in my life, I would reach out to these companies. And even the sauna company, like they don't pay me. They've never paid me, but like it's a $9,000 sauna, and then I also have other companies that help support the lifestyle that I live and enable me to do what I love to do, which is skateboarding and, inspiring others, inspiring kids, and designing products. And, I do make some pay there, and that's cool, but at the end of the day, it's always really been about working with companies that I've wanted to work with, it was like, it's always been that way. I think just other skaters look at it like, well, he's worked with a lot of companies, and a lot of them outside of just the core market of skateboarding, but it was always fitting my lifestyle, things that I love to do. And with health brands as well, like the lifestyle that I want to live and using their products and enjoying their products and seeing the benefit from them, so I just kind of always went with my natural kind of way of living and reaching out to the companies that I felt like I wanted to work with because I would use their products anyways.
It's time for my second round of sponsors, and I'm starting this one out with Outdoor Research. Have you seen that black and white Mark Abma kit online or in the new MSP movie? If you haven't seen it yet, look them up before you buy your gear for this winter. They're sick. And not only are OR's products built differently and outperform just about anything thanks to being athlete and employee tested here in the brutal conditions of the Pacific Northwest, nowadays they have so much more style than the OR gear from just 10 years ago. When you bring in athletes like Mark Abma, Micah Evangelista, Zoe Atkin, Tom and Bass Van Steenbergen, and many more, and you have them sit down and work with designers and marketers, it's no wonder why the cuts and styles are looking a little bit different than that climbing-inspired OR gear that you used to see. It's really a game-changing difference in the fit and function of the gear, and the look, well, it really is incredible. And with the holidays right around the corner, get someone in your life the gift that will last over time. I can honestly say that I've loved OR since I bought my first raincoat from them back in 2000, and they truly make my ski days better. And while I may not be the best skier in the world, my Outdoor Research kit makes me look like a pro. And you can do the same thing by heading over to outdoorresearch.com, looking around the site, and treating yourself to the best. Next up, when it's cold out there, I don't hit the mountain without my thermic heated socks. They are the original heated sock, and still the industry leader after 20 years. I mean, if your feet are frozen, it's going to ruin your day, and you're going to end up coming in early. And no one likes that. And that doesn't happen to me because I always wear my thermic socks. And this year, they're better than ever. Thermic's new smart elastic technology heated socks, think a high-performance fitting thin ski sock where the patented heating components have stretch rather than a bulky heat banding element. They literally feel like you're wearing your normal favorite pair of performance ski socks with heat. But if heat isn't for you, don't worry. Thermic has you covered with their athlete-tested and proven Descent line of socks. Some of you may be blessed with feet that never give you issues, but most of us aren't, and that's where Descent Labs comes in. They've engineered performance socks with their athlete team to eliminate things like chafing and heel blisters in your boots when you're touring or splitboarding. And for over a decade, The people at Descent have been making socks that have a distinctive, locked-in fit that never seems to change, no matter what you get up to. At the end of the day, Thermic and Descent socks are the go-to socks for people in the know. Drop into your local boot fitter and retailer and you'll see what I mean. My final sponsor is Stanley. And when Stanley started sponsoring this podcast, the story around the brand was that green bottle that keeps your grandpa's coffee hot. And that's still a story, but this week, they're totally changing the script. Actually, this year or the past few years, they're changing this script. And the latest big news around the brand is that they've signed Messi. The most famous soccer player in the world is part of the Stanley family. And while Stanley still sponsors me and Matchstick Productions, and most likely a snowboard movie that I don't know about, they've really matured as a brand over the years. I mean, they are the hottest or coldest cup in the world, and it feels like it. And it's still all about the product. Well, marketing with Messi and Olivia sure does help things, but if you don't have a great product, the marketing doesn't matter. And since Stanley has consistently had the best cups and bottles to keep things hot or cold since they invented the category in 1913, you need to check out what they're doing. While I still swear by the pint glasses that I use every day, which could be a perfect Christmas gift for the man in your life, I see so many other people out there drinking with that quencher cup, which is so popular. And I get it. For some reason, it makes you drink so much more water, and that's awesome. Really, these days, Stanley has something for everyone, and I'm going to save you 30% on all of your Stanley purchases. How am I going to do that? Well, when you head over to Stanley1913.com and go shopping, then you check out, you want to enter the code POWELL13, that's capital POWELL, the numbers 1913 with no spaces, and you'll save 30% on all Stanley gear. Those are my sponsors. Now let's jump back into the podcast. So like at the height of your competitive pro skateboard career where you're putting out parts every year, you're in contests like every other weekend, because there was a time when there was like 15 to 20 contests a year and you grew up like right in that perfect pocket. So there was a shit ton of money to be made in skateboarding. But during that time where you're getting all this exposure and you're getting the video parts as well, given while people might be pigeonholing you as a contest skater because they see you on TV, how many different brands? I mean, do you have 10, 12 brands sponsoring you at that point and most of them endemic?
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I think at one point, I probably had like 15 or 18 sponsors. You know, I still have like 10 or 12 sponsors. I definitely did have, probably like close to 20 sponsors at one time, at one point. Yeah, for sure. You know, and then a lot of these companies, you know, they would match like my contest winnings, you know. So if I won the Money Maloof Cup, I won $160,000. Like I rode for, I think at that time with Rockstar, it was Monster, I think at the time, they would match it. You know, I rode for K-Swiss at the time. They would match it. That day I walked away with like $500,000 just from that one day of skating. And that was not even the contest. That wasn't even the sponsorship money. That was just from the contest money that I won, plus my matching that they matched my winnings, because, you know, we would negotiate things in the contract that if you make it on the podium, they would match your pay. Some companies would have like a cap where they're going to cap it at $100,000 a year, where once you hit your cap, they're not going to pay you anymore. Brands like K-Swiss, there was no cap. So if I won that year, I don't know, $600,000 in contest winnings, and they would match it, you know? And then what I did is like, I always skated, right? And I always kind of had that lifestyle of skateboarding since I was, 15, 16 years old, and started making a good amount of money at 16, where I was probably making more money than the teachers that were teaching me in school. It was at that point of like, I ended up leaving school, dropping out early and moving to California to follow my passion for skating in my career. But I always knew like it wasn't going to last forever. As you get older, right? If you're not taking care of your body, or if you're not constantly evolving, and kind of inventing yourself and doing things, like you're going to eventually not have those sponsors. So like I was always just investing my money constantly. So I wasn't really spending a lot of money just on my personal stuff. I was buying tons of real estate. And that's what like kind of now, I still buy a lot of real estate, but I don't even have to have any sponsors to this day. And, I make a great amount just off my real estate portfolio alone. And then, I'm a part owner with Sessions West Coast Deli. So I'm a partner in 4 different restaurants that we have here in Orange County. I also have an online motorcycle business called Luzka's Garage, where we carry over 40,000 products, and then I have my entry-level skateboards that sell in Walmart and Amazon. I got a whole clothing line that's coming out of Walmart. We have a TV show out now on Fuel TV, which we're going to be filming season 2. So a lot of my vision now is like, how do I help out that next generation of kids coming up in skating? So by doing that, we launched entry-level skateboards for kids at an affordable price, cool clothing that's at an affordable price, helmets that are affordable price, TV shows to give opportunity to kids, and that's kind of a lot of my mission now, is like being that kind of good role model for that next generation of kids that are coming up and giving them opportunity. And just knowing that I don't really have to have any sponsors, to be honest. I just work with the brands that I want to work with because I enjoy their products. And, I have a real estate portfolio that brings in a lot of passive income, which is great. So I just continue doing what I love: skating, snowboarding, riding mountain bikes, riding Harleys, hanging out with my friends, doing good things, taking care of my body, and helping out that next generation of skaters and being a good influence, and, helping people realize they should take care of their health and wellness and invest their money. I go on podcasts and we talk about investing. I think investing is one of the most, to me, it was like the most important thing I did throughout my whole entire career, because now looking back at it, like, a lot of skaters at my age are like, shoot, if I lose some of these sponsors, what am I going to do, kind of deal, where I took all the money and I didn't blow it on dumb stuff, like I didn't blow my money where I could have blown it, and I just invested it. And I think at that time, like my neighbor, Ben, in Mission Viejo, was buying a bunch of rentals in Arizona. And he's like, asked me when I bought the house over there, he's like, well, what'd you pay on this? I told him, and he goes, man, you could buy like 10 rental, probably more, man, like 13, 14 rental properties in Arizona. And then I was like, really? I was like, well, what do you do for a living? He's like, oh, I'm retired, man. I played Monopoly. I buy property, I rent it out, and I think you should do the same. So from there, I just was like, oh, that's interesting. And he's like, yeah, I'll hook you up my realtor and show you kind of the ropes of how it works and where I think good areas are to buy. And I just started buying real estate over the years and just getting good at it. And then just, seeing that it's bringing in passive income, like, whoa, this is pretty good. And then all the tax benefits. And then I learned about asset protection, how to protect the assets and get the homes out of my personal name and throw them into trusts and LLCs, and learn accounting and like all this crazy stuff and management and like all this stuff that kind of goes along with it. But I want to be a good influence on the next generation of, athletes coming up to really take care of their health and their wellness and invest their money properly, so they can retire one day and not ever have to work, and they can do something similar like I did, invest into real estate or restaurants and build a diverse portfolio. And, I didn't graduate high school. I didn't go to school for any of this, but I learned a lot over the years. And a lot was actually from people I looked up to, like Chet Thomas taught me a lot, and Rodney Mullen, these kind of guys like were older than me and just giving me like, tips and tricks and giving me advice and helping me like put together, a plan for after skateboarding, which I think was so important, because if I didn't have those people in my life, I probably would have blew a lot of my money, and I would have been like, man, I don't even know what to do now. Like, I don't have a diploma. I blew all my money. I didn't build a retirement fund. I didn't protect my assets. I didn't even open a trust. So if I have kids one day, this will probably go to probate. You know what I mean? Like, I learned so much over the years, and I just call it like the school of life. And for me, like, I didn't ever really want to pay attention much in school, but it just was stuff that I just felt like, it was like history. And I'm like thinking, man, I've been to Europe. I've been to the Berlin Wall. Like, I've been to some of these places they're talking about in the history book, and they're trying to teach something. My teacher has never even been to this place, like,
Yeah.
How are they going to be able to teach something if they've never even been here? So for me, like at that time, it was just like, I think I'm just going to go on my own journey and move to California earlier and get my career jump started. And then the things that I wanted to learn about over the years, I really went in depth in and got good at. And that was like what I call the school of life, basically, and that's just kind of how I lived my life over the last 20 years,
Yeah, I mean, it's like you went to the World Championships in Germany when you're like a junior in high school or a sophomore in high school. You're like 17 years old. You win that contest. Then you come home with like 30 or 50 grand or something like that, which has to be batshit crazy for you. Cause like you're coming from not a lot of money to having 50 grand in the bank. Like you buy a BMW, right? Like you at least get a nice car.
Yeah, no, I did. Well, at the time, my parents bought me because, like I said, I don't want to say we were poor, but we were like poor to middle class. You know what I mean? So like,
you weren't worried about food or anything.
Yeah, we weren't on food stamps, but my parents didn't have money to just buy like a nice car for me. Like, it was a $2,500 Honda Civic, and I was grateful to get that. Was that thing going to make it to California? I mean, maybe.
Right,
maybe it would. Maybe we might have to stop and do some work on it or something. But yeah, that's kind of what I did. Is I bought that BMW when I came back, And it wasn't like a crazy BMW, it was just like it was the lowest model you could buy. Actually, it was a 3 Series. So it was like, just a reliable car that I was like, all right, I'm going to buy this car and I'm going to move to California and all my stuff's going to fit in here. And this is what we're doing. And it's going to be reliable, So that's kind of what I did, and thank God, actually, I did win that contest because that did give me a nice little bump start to get some money under my belt. Some sponsors were really starting to pay me at that time and starting to really believe in me because I was winning those contests and I was filming a lot. And it just helped me like have a little nest egg for when I came here to California, was able to pay rent and really just focus on filming and skateboarding every day. That's the main thing. And
did you ever have to have a job, or were you able to just skateboard?
I did, like as a kid, I was a paper boy, for like, I don't know, not long, like a month. I was like, I remember just, being that little kid, like trying to deliver these papers and like, oh my God, these papers are so many of them. They're so heavy and I almost got to get like a wagon or something. I don't know how we're going to do this. So that job didn't last long. I was just like burnt out. I was like, I'm just put all my focus in on skateboarding,
And when you decided to make the move and like you talked, I'm sure your teachers found out what your plan was. Your parents knew what your plan was. I'm guessing your parents support you because, if you make your mind up, that's what parents should do, is support you. But were your teachers almost clowning your decision? Like, this kid doesn't
100%.
know what he's going to do?
100%. At one point, like they didn't like, they did ask like the class, what do you want to do when you grow up, or when you become an adult, or you leave school, or when you're done with high school, I should say. And I would say I'm gonna be a pro skateboarder. And to them, it's like, so like, what? Like, but they're not watching the skate videos like I'm watching. They're not seeing like guys like Andrew Reynolds that moved from Florida to California and blew up in skateboarding and like traveling the world and has his name on boards and making money doing what he loves to do, which is skating, and like inspiring kids like myself to go do that. They're just like, skateboarding, what, with 4 wheels, like in a piece of wood, like that's unheard of. Like, and I think in California, it's probably a little different because teachers here, if you're in Huntington Beach and, kids in the classroom surf, I mean, the ocean's right there. Kids in the classroom probably going to skate. There's tons of skate parks around here. It's like more of a known thing. All the kids are going to school with Vans on and Volcom shirts. And, so I'm sure the teachers are like, pro skater, like, yeah, I could see it, but in the Midwest, like I'm one of 4 or 5 kids, if that even skated in my high school, it's like unheard of,
Were you always an outcast because of that?
Yeah, I would say so. Like I never went to homecoming, never went to prom. Like I was trying to get out of school as quickly as possible to get on my board to go skate, to be honest. So like I never cared about school. I never cared about being there longer than I had to be there, basically, and so that's kind of just the journey I went on, is I'm going to become a pro skateboarder, and there was no plan B, and we're going to make this happen no matter what. And we're going to prove these teachers wrong. And then years later, they would see, I don't know, because at one point I became like a hometown hero. So when I go home, like I was in the newspapers, or, you know what I mean? Like I go to parks, I'd go do demos there, and like I'd be on the news, and teachers eventually were like, wow, that kid did go do that. And he did win the X Games, and wow, he made a career for himself. And I remember I had teachers like got a hold of me and congratulated me, that once doubted me, for sure.
That's awesome, man. And so you make the move, and like immediately things start happening for you pretty quickly. I mean, before you even started moving, things happened, but you end up with Daewon Song and Rodney Mullen, which are like 2 of the most iconic skateboarders ever, really. And you're part of that almost team with them. And what do you learn from those guys, from being just like a young 18-year-old kid who gets to hang out with like 2 legends of the sport? Do you learn a lot about what to do with money and what to do as in a career and how to negotiate contracts and all that stuff from those legends?
Yeah, like Chet Thomas definitely has helped me out a tremendous amount. Like back then was like, you can't have these companies paying you personally, dude. You got to open up an S corporation. You got to have the companies paying that. You're going to have to get like a business card with it. And, this is going to help with like a lot of stuff, like saving on taxes and just separating your personal stuff from the business stuff, and like just help me out with that. And then he helped me like open up my living trust, like told me how important that is, because if you don't have a living trust, you're not going to have beneficiaries that are going to basically get your belongings, your home, your car, whatever you have, your assets. And I have tons of assets, rental properties, and how to protect those assets, and then opening it up also like retirement funds, like an IUL. I have a IUL that has our life insurance built in with basically a retirement fund. So some of the portion goes towards like a life insurance, and it has not just death benefit, but living death benefit. That means if I get hit by a car, something bad happens, I have a living death benefit, like $1 million that will pay for all my hospital bills, pay for me to live. Like if you can't do 2 of the 5 things that are on the list, you get those benefits. And when I die, my beneficiary or my wife or whoever that is, who's my beneficiary on my trust, will get that $1 million policy too, because I paid into that. And at the end of the day, it's got a retirement side of things to it, kind of like someone's like 401k or IRA or Roth IRA. Well, more like a Roth IRA, because you don't have to pay taxes on the money that you made over those years, and it's built off the market. And you don't have to wait till you're a certain age to take it out. Like if you have a Roth IRA, yeah, you don't have to pay the taxes on the gains, but you also will get a penalty if you take it out earlier than retirement age, what they say. And with the IUL, you don't have that. And some people just buy life insurance and you have no retirement plan with that. So learning about the IUL was a really cool thing from Chet that he kind of put me in. And like, for sure, like business wise, those dudes helped me out. Chet helped me out so much. And when I would go invest in things like Sessions West Coast Deli, for instance, I went to him before investing into it and kind of showed him the agreements and all that kind of stuff. And I've also had opportunity before that to invest in some things. And I showed him those agreements. He's like, nah, I think I'm going to pass on these 2. And then when he was like, yeah, I think Sessions is a good deal for you, dude. And like, do they have opportunity for me to invest? And they did. So like he came in and he invested in the deli. And that's when we just had the 1 location. Now we have 4 and it does really well, but I kind of looked at him because he's had a skate shop. He's had real estate. He's had rental properties. He's had apartment buildings. He's helped start companies. He's owned his own companies. He's sold companies. So I'd always ask him questions throughout my whole career. And still to this day, I do. Anything that I have questions about, I call him because he always steered me in the right direction. And then, of course, skateboarding too. Like he gave me opportunity too to like ride for, Dark Star skateboards that I was part of for almost 20 years, So he helped me in so many ways. I'm so grateful for him. You know what I mean? Without him, I wouldn't be where I'm at. And Rodney did too, Rodney gave me a lot of opportunity to be on Almost. That really changed my life, because when the Almost Round 3 video came out, that's instantly where everyone knew who Greg Lutzka was overnight, basically, because I was in this video next to Rodney Mullen, Day One Song, Ryan Sheckler. Everyone knew who these guys were, and they were superstars, right? So you put my name next to them, it's like, boom, everyone overnight knew who I was. So, I give a lot of thank yous to those guys, you know what I mean? And still to this day, thanking them. And I still ask them questions, and, because I didn't go to school. I didn't know about investing. I didn't know about how to create retirement funds. I didn't know about any of this stuff. And my parents didn't either, because they didn't have the extra money to be able to do that kind of stuff,
Yeah, totally. And, talking about skateboarding, because we haven't really talked about it that much. We've been talking about peripheral stuff, but you talked about your almost part in round 3. And that's like the part that everybody talks about with you. It's your breakout part. Everybody knows you from that. But when you think about that, with that part, it happens so young. And every year it's like you want to up your video parts. It seems like every year. Is it frustrating when you have your breakout part so young and you have to try to one up that every year?
That's a really good question. I think to this day, my best video part was Almost Round 3, but it's kind of like other people watch some of my other parts and they're like, no, I think that was your best video part. I think I just like Almost Round 3 because it's just right when I came to California, and it was just a lot of just excitement at that time of like filming every day, and all the skate spots were new to me, and like it was just different. I think as I got older, my tricks just progressed, like back then I wasn't doing like the 270 nose blunts and the 270 kickflip to nose blunts and doing like the frontside 360 with the kickflip in it. Like I progressed my skateboarding over those years for sure. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of pressure for sure. I was just always about like the progression of skateboarding and progressing my skateboarding. So the Almost Round 3 part, I think, has the most tricks, like back to back to back. Like it was a long video part with a really good song, with a long song. So there's a lot of skating in there. As like some of the newer videos, like the Globe, United by Fate, wasn't as long of a video part, but the tricks, I feel like some of them were harder for sure. Like I was actually really progressing my skating to doing way more difficult tricks. And some people love that part more, I don't know. It was just all different. It's like tattoos, it's like if you got a tattoo, probably your first or second tattoo is your favorite one. But then as you get older, you got some more and you went to other artists and maybe the artwork's a little bit better with this new artist that you're with. You know what I mean? Like, but your favorite one was like probably one of the first ones you got, you know? So for me, like almost round three was my favorite part. For I think fans, maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. I've heard mixed feelings of, nah, dude, I think this part was one of your best, you know? But at the end of the day, I was just progressing as much as I could and just wanted to continue skating and pushing my level of difficulty just to that next level, you know, just constantly just pushing myself, you know.
So video parts are one part of the skate career, but back when you came up, print was a huge deal. Getting magazine covers was a big, big deal. And when you think about it, how many covers have you had? And what was the cover that either captures your skating the best, like the essence of your skating, or what's just your favorite photo of yourself?
Yeah, I think I had Big Brother magazine covers. I had Skateboarder magazine covers. I had some overseas covers that were like Canada, on the cover of magazines in Canada and Europe. My favorite cover, and Thrasher, of course. I had a Thrasher cover. That's probably my favorite cover, actually, because Thrasher is just iconic, and you know, Thrasher cover is a big deal to get one of those. So I think, you know, over the years, I would say the Thrasher cover is probably my favorite. But photo wise, maybe the photo wasn't my favorite. My favorite photo would probably be the front board down the Robert Frost double kink handrail. That's a shot at night, and it was shot by DeVille. And I think just because I worked so hard, if you watch the documentary, the One Way Ticket documentary, it's on Apple TV and it's on Amazon. That movie kind of explains a little bit of that. There's a section in it that talks about like the front board, and we were up to, I mean, we probably got there at like 1 a.m. and we didn't leave until like 4:30 a.m. And I finally got the trick, but it was like a battle. And it shows all the falls, and it's like, dude, I was so like, oh, I think we're done, dude. Like I just put everything into the sand, and Gideon, my filmer, was just like, dude, I got the keys, man. We drove 2.5 hours. We are not leaving till you land this. And I just took my hat and like threw it at him. I was like, all right, dude, this one. I landed that one, and thank God I did. I just pointed at it like in the footage, like, I did it, dude, I did it. And that photo was sick that DeVille took. And that was probably one of my favorite skate photos throughout my whole career, you know. And I think it was a globe ad, I want to say. Pretty sure it was a globe ad.
Okay. And then that's one element of your skateboarding is the photo. And we talked about video parts and then contests. I mean, you talk about winning 160 grand at the Maloof event. And that one, I think you like stayed up all night partying, right? And it didn't affect you at all?
I think we went out like, you know, you got to figure I was probably like 24, 25 years old. And, you know, you go to these skate contests and, you know, they would have like the after parties or the before parties, you know what I mean? They'd have like different musicians performing and all that stuff. That night, me and my girlfriend were out, and we just went out, had a good time, and we didn't go to sleep till like way later at whatever, like 3, 4, 5 in the morning. And, you know, it was kind of all like a blur, but we went out, and like, I just remember waking up and she's like, how you feeling? I was like, oh, so a little hungover, but we're going to go win this thing. And I did end up winning it. But I mean, just because it was 160 grand didn't really mean much to me. Not that that was my favorite contest. My favorite contest would probably be the Tampa Pro. You know, like I won Tampa Pro 3 times. I'm probably the only skateboarder, well, actually the only skateboarder other than that I know of, which is Eric Costin, that won it 3 times. Nigel might have won it 3 times now. I don't know. We'd have to look at the years, but because I know he's won it a couple times. But that was probably the most like important contest to me, was winning the Tampa Pro, especially for the first time, and then winning it 2 more times.
I mean, that contest's so important because it's so iconic within skateboarding. Like, yeah, the X Games is a big deal, but it's not the Tampa contest that everybody's been talking about for 30 years.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's an iconic contest, and like Tampa in general just has a lot like of meaning, like in my career, and to me is just like that's where I went, where I was an amateur and like basically won the worst fall award, you know, when I was like a young kid, and like came back and like made like finals or like top 5 or whatever in the amateur contest. So like coming back, turning pro and actually winning the pro contest was like huge. And, you know, I just got a lot of opportunity at Tampa, you know, like that's where I met some of my sponsors that believed in me, and, you know, Al Partnin that brought me on tour right from the Tampa Am contest with Millennium Skateboards. And that's how I met like Mike Peterson, who introduced me to Chet Thomas, who got me on Globe. and how I met Rodney Mullen that got me in Almost. It was like a huge like domino effect of really meeting some key people in the skate industry and those pros and these companies really believing in me. It all started from Tampa. So, Tampa's everything to me. And it is kind of like a party too, like the whole weekend. It's a fun event. It's not like crazy corporate, kind of how the X Games is, where you got to have like this pass to get in, and like it's just more raw. It's a really cool raw real skate contest. There's no BMX, there's no other things going on there, just skateboarding, and it's true to skateboarding. And that's why like it's one of my favorite events, and to this day it still is. So
all right, I've got a few more questions before I get into my final segment, and there's some things I have to ask about. This one is not one that I have to ask about, but when you think about best trips that you've been on, whether it's skate spots, the people that you're traveling with, what's your most memorable trip for skateboarding?
That's a tough one because I've been traveling 20 years. I got I'm on my fourth passport now. So a lot of good trips, I think skateboarding wise, I always love Barcelona, like Barcelona always had like really, really, really good spots, super smooth ground. Everything's marble, very cool place where you take the trains around, and like Barcelona was awesome for skateboarding. People wise, I always loved Australia. All the people that I've met there, super cool. They have the accent. The girls there, love the American guys. So like the girls there are awesome. Lots of cool skate spots there. We would go to places like Bondi Beach. We go to Surfers Paradise. So it's like you're like on vacation and you're like on the beach and it's like super tropical. And then you'd go to like the city, which is like Sydney and Melbourne, that like had all the crazy skate spots. And I was sponsored by Globe at the time. So Globe was huge over there. That's where they're from. So like we got taken care of very well every time we were in Australia. And then also just going to other places that you felt like you're in a different world, like Japan and China that had amazing skate spots, but it really feels like you're in a different country. Dubai was really cool. There's so many cool places. Like there's not just one in particular. So Russia was nuts. Russia was crazy. There's so many good places for skateboarding. All those places had amazing skateboard spots that you'd go to. And I met so many cool people over all the years, and I'm just so grateful that skateboarding gave me that opportunity to be able to travel the world doing what I love to do, and to be able to see all these different countries, Brazil, China, Japan, Europe, freaking Australia, South Africa. I went to South Africa like 4 or 5 times. Dubai, yeah, like all these places are great. So it's kind of hard for me to nail down just one. They all have their special moment,
Yeah, totally. And I guess towards the end of your 20s is when some brands maybe aren't investing as much in you anymore. And I'm sure when you have as many sponsors as you've had throughout your life, you definitely get dropped here and there. What was the toughest experience you went through getting dropped by somebody?
Yeah, I mean, it just never feels good. That's just kind of life, though. That's the world of skateboarding, like Oakley kind of was a bummer because it wasn't just me who got dropped. They kind of dropped their whole skate team just because the company got sold, right? And we put together a really good video, like me and Scheckler and Bob Burnquist, and they had an amazing team. Like, and we came off the video called Our Life. And once that came out, it was like, after that, I want to say like a year later, the company I think got sold, and then they just kind of dropped like the whole action sports division completely, just because maybe the new owners weren't as in tune with it. But Oakley was a really cool sponsor, and we did a lot of great trips with them. And, I've always been a big fan of their eyewear, and I ride their snowboard goggles and have their travel bags, and I still rock Oakley stuff. Like I love Oakley. Those are the goggles that I wear when I go snowboarding. But over the years, yeah, like, it's just being a pro athlete. You're going to have companies that are going to sponsor you, and sometimes there's different reasons why, like budget cuts, or it's just, it's just part of being an athlete, and that's why you really got to plan for when you're making money being an athlete. And it doesn't really matter what kind of athlete you are. If you're a football player, baseball player, whatever you are, if you're blowing money and you're not investing this money at the time, what are you going to do after your career? And I think that's why they say like 80% of athletes go broke, is because they're living this lifestyle. It doesn't matter what you make, it matters what you spend. And if you're spending all this money and you're not investing it, and you're buying cars and jewelry or whatever it is, or going to the clubs or whatever you're doing, and it's just blowing it, you're not going to have anything when you're done with your career. And who knows, you could get hurt, you could blow your knee out, and then you could lose your career even earlier than you think you can. So that's like the number one thing that I would always stress to any athlete is invest your money. And if you don't know where to invest your money, get with a financial advisor that could probably help you out and diversify your portfolio. Or some athletes even start their own companies, and it comes down to what you believe in. But at the end of the day, you should try to invest your money so then you have something to live off of after just your professional skating career. Because eventually it's going to run through. There's always going to be a new kid on the block that's looking to take your place, So, that's kind of my advice,
Okay. And I was going to talk about you getting hypnotized because it sounds like at the end of your 20s, you got hypnotized. It was life-changing. It gave you a totally new perspective on how to manifest the things that you've made happen in your life happen. And if you look at everything that you've done, man, you've fucking killed it everywhere you've put your money. So that's definitely worked out for you. But I'm not going to really talk about that stuff. People can find that on another podcast. I'm sure there's a lot of writing out there as well. But when you think of the top 3 businessmen within skateboarding that are athletes that also are good at investing their money, and you take yourself and maybe Rob Dyrdek out of it, who are the top 3?
I was just going to say Rob.
Yeah, I mean, but he seems like he's the pinnacle.
Me and Rob went to the same hypnotist, Dr. George Pratt, and he's been on Larry King. He's amazing. I actually just went back to George 2 months ago just to go visit him and see how he's doing, man. He's amazing. But yeah, me and Rob went to the same hypnotist, and I think he helped us open our mind and have a lot of the same beliefs. We don't have to go too much into that, but yeah, definitely Rob Dyrdek, Chet Thomas, Paul Rodriguez, Mikey Taylor. Those are like the top that I've known to invest pretty well. But definitely 100% Rob Dyrdek is a serial entrepreneur, always pushing himself to the next level, super business savvy, but also like strategizes from what I see, like his time, like how he invests his time and not just business with his family, his kids, you know what I mean? Like he self-manages his time very well is what I should say. I think that's pretty cool. I watched some of his podcasts and he talks a lot about that. I think that's really important when you have a lot of things going on, because if you're focused so much in business, you kind of lose it over here. You got to learn balance in your life. And I think skateboarders in general don't really have balance. They're like all or nothing, or at least I know I am. So it's kind of cool to have that. And that's something that I'm working on right now is managing my time. And also, life's short. You can't always be working. You can't always just be stressing on or focused on business or investing. You got to go enjoy life too at times, because it is short and you got to make time for your family, your friends, yourself, but also, have responsibility in your life at the same time where, you are setting yourself up for a good future and you are taking care of your health and your well-being. And I think just managing balance and time and not just being an all or nothing person like I normally am and trying to like have more balance in your life is super important. So that's something that I'm focused on right now is definitely having balance and not just going all or nothing into one thing, but that helped me out earlier in my years. If you think about skateboarding, I was putting all this time and effort and like 100,000% into filming round 3 and look what happened. And it's kind of always been that way. That's why those video parts turned out the way they did. That's why my investments turned out the way they did. Cause I was so like, I'm not just buying one house, I'm buying 22 homes. You know what I mean? Like rental properties. Like now I'm buying apartment complexes and I'm in storage facilities. I own storage facilities, because I was just all or nothing. But as I get older now, it's kind of like, all right, I just want to manage my time more like kind of Dyrdek does. I think that's super important. And then also just have a little more balance. I think it's super important because it's hard to do though, so that's something I'm working on. So.
All right. Well, now it's time for what I call inappropriate questions. And with this, I usually get someone that to ask 3 questions and they could be anything, but I don't know anybody that and I really didn't have time to find anybody, unfortunately. So I came up with 3 questions of my own and we'll see if you'll answer them. And the first inappropriate question that I have for you is, what's the most groupie thing that you've seen in your professional skateboarding life?
I don't think there was anything too crazy. And even if there was, I wouldn't want to drop any names on people or call people out.
For sure.
Yes, I don't even know. I don't really have any good stories on that, to be honest with you.
Okay, well, you don't have to drop any names on this next one, but when you think about trouble, that definitely happens in skateboarding, whether you're breaking into a place to skate a feature or you're just having a good time and blowing off some steam. When you're on tour, a lot of shit can happen. What's the wildest thing that you've seen on tour and you don't have to name any names?
I'd just say skaters, like, you're young, you're making money, you're traveling. I would say just skaters like thrashing hotels and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like, I think that happened a lot.
Have you seen TVs go out the window and shit like that?
Yeah, like skaters just went nuts back in the day. I think not now so much because I'm a bit older now too, and same with my same friend group. Ryan DeCenzo and all these guys. They're all like my age. So we're all pretty responsible now. But I think as a young kid, like even myself, we trashed the hotel at the Figueroa and we got kicked out and like banned. And like I had to write like an apology letter and spend like like $3,000 on cleaning up the hotel. And it wasn't just me or it was during X Games, but it was a group of like all the skaters being at one hotel room and partying. So I don't think it's like a matter of I was crazy and trashing the hotel. I think it was just that happened to be at my room. You know what I mean? So that happens though. You get a group of guys together and they're young and they're making money and they're traveling. They're probably going to party a little bit and they're probably going to trash some hotels. I think that's like the worst thing I've seen. But, none of us went to jail or anything. It was just kind of waking up the next morning and going back to our room. The key didn't work. And then, going to the front desk, like, we have all your stuff down here and you're not allowed back in there, so I guess, that happens though, and I'm sure rock stars have done the same,
Totally. And then I guess I'm going to maybe make the third one about the same thing because I'm just guessing. Have you ever seen anybody jump off like the 12th floor into the pool? Does that shit happen too?
I haven't personally, but in videos, like skate videos, I think like Bam Margera would do stuff like that. You know what I mean? At like Tampa. I remember seeing some footage of Bam jumping off some pretty crazy stuff into the pools at hotels and going pretty nuts,
And, speaking of when you came up, when you were 10 to 14 years old, was that like the CKY days? And were you guys doing dumb shit like those guys back then?
Yeah, those videos were definitely like highlights, But no, I do know like friends that would mock and do the same kind of stuff that they were doing in those videos for sure. Like just being like rebellious kids, I think I was just so focused on filming and skating that we weren't taking shopping carts and putting each other in them and trying to throw them down hills and do nuts stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, I do remember the CKY days and those are pretty good days in skateboarding, and Bam definitely made a mark back then, and then, obviously you got the TV show and all that kind of stuff, the Jackass days and all that. It's wild what they built off of kind of the CKY days,
Yeah. And those videos were great. And that's Inappropriate Questions. And that's our podcast. And it's like, you are one of the best business skateboarders there are. There's Deerdeck, which we said, but outside of him, I feel like you're the best. I mean, there's not many as savvy as you are. Between the two of you, maybe it's because you're both Midwestern high school dropouts with a vision, or maybe it's because of the hypnotization, but you guys have a lot of common denominators, but none of this happens without you risking it all for a career in skateboarding. Like, there wasn't a plan B with you. It was like, hey, I'm going to move out to California and I'm going to become a pro skateboarder. And plan A worked for you at 17 years old, which is really insane. And it's a cool story. It's worthy of the movie that you made, which I didn't watch because I didn't want to cheat on this whole podcast. But I thank you for your sharing your story here, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me, and thanks again for all the support and everyone else out there for all the support. It means the world to me, and let's just end it at this, man. Go out there, live your life, enjoy it, and go after your passion, and don't let anyone steer you in the wrong direction. Follow your dreams and go after it, and you can make your dreams become a reality. Thank you.
So that was time with Greg Lutzka, and I don't know if he had a shit ton of media training or what the deal was, but he definitely had his own agenda of what he wanted to talk about, and that's okay. I guess I'm just glad that I got him on early on in his media barrage, because his agent is emailing around to get him on these podcasts, and he's done so many amazing business things that he wants to talk about, and I have a feeling that's what these podcasts are all going to be about. I guess I really could have asked him about anything and he would have answered, and that's not totally true, but I'm not going to get into that. And while his business life is really interesting, like I said, I can only hear so much of it. We got enough. I feel like his life and times are interesting. I'm sure everyone would love to live a day in Greg's shoes. Regardless, he's had an incredible pro career, so props to him. At this point, while I'd like to talk your head off a little, it's time for me to head to the airport and go to the High Fives event for their Silver Tie Gala. So I'm out of here. I want to thank you for listening. I want to thank you for reviewing me wherever you listen. And I want to ask you to please support the brands who make this podcast happen. They are Elan Skis, Outdoor Research, Stanley, Best Day Brewing, Insta360 Cameras, and Thermic and Descent Socks. Have a great week, everyone.